Rademaker's prescription for transformation. Let's tap into your own authentic genius and live the life you desire.
You are now listening to
Join Dr. Rademaker for an enlightened conversation about our brain intelligence, our body intelligence, and our energy intelligence. And now, here's your host, Dr. Bart Rademaker.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, prescription for your transformation, real people, real conversations, and real success. And it's really all about that authentic conversation that we get to have. And today is an exciting one because the conversations will be amazing. It'll be out of this world. In fact, out of this country, because we've gone to the South Pacific. But here's what I want to share. And this is critical. And particularly, this is for everyone, actually, but particularly if you're a woman. I mean, do you ever feel that you are invisible? Hear that again. Do you ever feel that you're invisible, that you're not seen? And one of the things that I find so often, and in my own personal experience, is the desire just to be witnessed the way you are, without any judgment, without any reservation, without any, apology, if you will. And so the challenge that's for so many of us is that there's this stuff that's happening inside that we don't even know how to let it all out. And we're fearful of so many different things, that we're not going to be loved, that we're going to be rejected, that we're not enough. We're all these different things that we're not going to fit in. And so there are solutions for this. And the reason that I have this platform is to tap into that collective wisdom all over the world, amazing people like Suzys de Jong. And what I love about what she's doing, she's coming from an angle that's very unique for her because of her experience, her background. We'll talk a little bit about that. So it's not the traditional coaching kind of perspective, which in my opinion is really good and is lacking so many parts that are essential to the human experience. And so I want to welcome Suzys de Jong from the down under, I guess, off the Gold Coast, close to the Barrier Reef, out of Queensland. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, Bart, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So, and Sedona, of course, thank you for helping me with this. And I love the fact that, I have these two amazing women that can join me in this journey as to what Suzys does and how you help people, women particularly, with their own personal transformation. So where does it start for you, Suzys?
Well, I guess that it started with my own journey. It started with going through a series of life events, including loss of my father, working a really successful business, but not being able to say no. And that culminated in me just having a nervous breakdown. And it made me really reassess my life and the way I was living it. And I actually got to a point, I had to go on medication. I saw a psychiatrist, and I got to the point on my last visit with my psychiatrist where she said to me, on a scale of 1 to 10 of where you are now to where you were before you went through this, where are you at? And I said, about a 7. She said to me, well, that's all I can do for you. That's all medication can do for you. The rest is up to you. And it was like one of those pivotal moments where I just sort of went, but that's not good enough. I don't want to go back to the life I had because this was the cause of it. So I want to redesign my life. I want to find out why. That just set me on a journey of discovery, and a lot of coaching courses, reading everything I could. Just felt like I knew that there was more for me to do in the world, and it was really important for me to discover that. And that's how I came to do what I do, because I couldn't find what I needed. I've created what I needed at the time to help other people going through the same sort of, I guess it's not a midlife crisis, maybe a life crisis, because it can happen to anyone at any age.
One of the things I'm absolutely convinced in, and that is, when when we as humans are facing any particular challenge, and there's this inner fire within us that if we know that we can succeed, we're going to be driven to succeed. And that's where we get the insights that we then can share others, that oftentimes can help them avoid these kinds of challenges, perhaps circumvent them, or just overcome them when they show up. And so clearly you're a great teacher then, because you understand how to work through this. And what I really love about your background, and I think this is very relevant, is that your background is in human resources. It's in the hospitality industry. It's in the medical field as well. And so that gives you, by practice, by experience, tremendous insight in different personalities. And so then intuitively, I'm sure, you get to identify, where people are at and helping them, bring to the outside, basically verbally, what's happening inside.
Yeah, so I guess connection's a lot to do with it. I've always been really good with building relationships, and I think I've always been really curious. My daughter says that she thinks I'm nosy because I'm always asking people questions. Like her girlfriends will come over here and I'll be asking them questions. My computer's frozen. I hope we haven't frozen, but I'll keep going anyway.
Just keep on going. Your mouth is kind of really open there. But what?
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Just keep on talking.
About they work and
all right.
We've all got so much. We're all different, but we've all got a lot in common.
So we're having a little challenge here, Susie. I don't know if you can hear me well. You're kind of breaking up. Are you currently on Wi-Fi, or are you hardwired, or?
I'm on.
So maybe
Wi-Fi.
What I think you may want to do is just to refresh that page. What do you think, Sedona? Okay, there we go. Okay. So I'm going to continue a little bit with Sedona here, and hopefully Susie will get back to us right away. But one of the things that she was sharing with me earlier on is how many women are out there really searching for so much more in their lives. And let's keep tabs on, make sure she joins us. Hold on a second. Let me see. This is her. I think I can invite her back in. I kind of forewarned her that this might happen. Let's see if we can get her back in. Invited her. All right. I don't know if that was the best idea. Do you think that was the right idea to have her refresh it?
Most likely.
Yeah. All right. So, well, anyhow. So let me ask you this. I mean, of your age group, your generation. I always forget which generation you are, by the way. How do you feel about women just not being heard, feeling invisible, feeling that they're not enough or not fitting in, and most importantly, having that sense that things have to be so much better? What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely struggle with that. I don't know. Honestly, to be quite frank, I didn't have any issues growing up as a woman until about the age of college. That's when I started really noticing things different in workplaces, different in society, and it's just, I think it's just because where I grew up, it wasn't really like that from what I could tell. And once I kind of branched out and saw other areas of the country, then I started noticing things like that. But I also think that partially that problem just comes to people of my generation. It's not necessarily just women. A lot of people don't necessarily want to hear out youth. They don't want to they don't always think that we know what we're talking about when sometimes we've been studying that subject for quite a long time and sometimes even longer than people of other generations. So it depends what you're looking at. It depends what you're looking for.
See, so here's my question, and correct me if I'm wrong, because, I'm also in that space of learning. Because obviously, you grew up in a very, what I would say, awesome environment. I mean, a great family, great connections, and essentially a safe environment where you could definitely thrive. And I'm going to try to see if I get Susie back in again. And coming out in the environment that you came in college, then, do you feel that there's a bigger disconnect for a lot of different, oh, here she is. Wait, we lost her again. Are you back?
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, everyone. I must leave the computer trying.
It's just, those Australians, they're way behind in technology. That's all. So we were just talking, Susie, with Sedona, and I was asking her, in her generation, is she finding that a lot of the women out there are really searching and not feeling that they're being heard or being witnessed? And so she was just kind of giving me her answer. My answer to her was, she mentioned to me that, growing up, it wasn't an issue, but going to college, it was. And so my question then for her, and then we'll go back to you, Susie, is it just because of such a disconnect with, society and people, simply because of all the technology, and also because of all with and who to identify with, and then there's this big fear that you're going to be ostracized, that you're just going to be judged, and we see that in politics, for example, and it's awful. And with the research that I look at is, and I'm going to get your response on this, Susie, after Sedona says it, is that if we want to change the world, right? If we want to influence it from a good place, we have to change ourselves first. We have to reform ourselves first, because otherwise it's just nonsense. So first, you, Sedona, why don't you answer me on that one?
I would say that part of that is definitely correct. You are looking for yourself. You're finding things that you care about. Everybody goes into this kind of culture shock when they go to college. And I would say that at least where I'm going to school, there's a lot less judgment on particular things than I found in high school. I think it's easier for people to find people that they get along with, because there's so many students that everybody comes from all walks of life, and you can always find somebody to relate to and people to work with. So I would say that on a social front, it's a lot easier for people in college than perhaps high school, where it's a lot smaller population. If you don't really get along with people that branch out and find other people just like you. And I would say that for my school, they give us to do internships, to get out in the field. So it's definitely, it's kind of what happens in those workplaces, not necessarily what happens at school.
Right. Okay. Awesome. So, Susie, welcome back.
Thank you.
So what's the underlying issue in your opinion? Because you got this amazing website, and I love the name, Beautifully Selfish. And as I was talking to you beforehand, there's always such a stigma being selfish, and I think it's so important, to be selfish to the point. And I don't call it selfish; I call it self-actualization, where you get to take care of yourself, so that when you're in a better space, then you're in a better place to take care of everyone else. So what's the underlying problem? What are we missing here to have people? Yeah.
I see, and I'm going to talk about my era.
Yeah.
Because I guess I'm the sort of at the end of the baby boomer era, and I see a lot of women in my age group that they get to a point in their life where, you know, they've maybe raised a family and, you know, been taking care of other people, and then something will happen, like with me when my daughter moved out of home. I've only got one child, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, what do I do now? I haven't thought about me and what makes me happy. And it can be a real time where you feel very lost. And women, another thing about women my age, is I know them really well, is that they don't like to come across as vulnerable, a lot of them, because they feel that they're going to be judged, and they feel shame about sharing. You know, like I've just shared with you, I've had a nervous breakdown. Like, I do that because I didn't do anything wrong. You know, that was something that happened to me. And by me doing it, I know that it gives other people permission to feel okay. But there's a lot of women out there that are unhappy or lost, and they don't share that. They don't ask for help. You know, it can be, there's a movie out in Australia years ago called Puberty Blues, and it was all about two young girls going through that time of being a teenager where, you know, you're changing and it's challenging and you're trying to find your place in the world. I call it midlife puberty blues, because I've found that we come to a point where, you know, you might be going through menopause or hormones, or, you know, like there's all these different things, and you're trying to find your place in the world again. So that's why I want women to see. I have trouble with that word selfish. I was talking to my coach about this the other day. So that's why I put it with that word beautiful.
Right.
Because taking care of yourself is not selfish.
Right.
Doing what makes you happy is not selfish.
Right.
It's actually selfless. So I guess it was for me to overcome that too, of thinking, doing what I want to do, how's it going to affect my husband, my family, my community, whatever? Are they going to think I'm selfish?
Right.
So that's a big part of, we get all caught up in judgment, I think, is a huge one.
Yeah, let me add something to that, because you know, I experience that all the time, and over the years, you know, I was challenged with that too. And, you know, then suddenly you come up with a situation, you feel totally guilty that you're taking care of yourself, and then you think about the rest of the world, how upset they are. And with my own coach, I learned something which was absolutely brilliant. And that is the question, is this my work to do? And so when people show up in your space and they're upset because you're taking care of yourself, then the easy response that I have, and it doesn't always work, by the way, is that, you know, is this my work to do? And my thoughts is that you're in charge of your own thoughts. So therefore you're in charge of your own decisions and your actions. You know, you can't blame me for any of that. So however you choose to respond to anything, that's on you. And I think that's on you. That's like a South Pacific expression, by the way. And so that choice that you're saying that you're making, and again, I don't necessarily use the word selfish. I think Ayn Rand wrote the book on being selfish, and that's a great book if you haven't read it. And you know, it's as you said, it's self-actualization. It's taking care of you, finding the alignment of your beliefs and your values so that you can be the best version of yourself. And guess what? When you're the best version of yourself, you're better for everyone else. And if they don't like it, that's their problem, right?
Yes, I heard a really great quote the other day. And it was, the only opinion that really matters is your own. Mm-hmm. Because you're the one, we're all 100% responsible for our own decisions, the way we live in the world. So we should only really care about, how it works for us, how it makes us feel. I mean, it's not talking about being a bad person or not caring or anything like that. This doesn't even come into it. It's about just being responsible for yourself in the world, and teaching our kids to do that too.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then I would also add to that is, and something I recently learned was, do no harm. And so not purposely say something or do something that either consciously with intention or unconsciously with intention, you're hurting somebody else. I mean, at the end of the day, and one of the coolest things, and this was an epiphany for me a while back, is, the best thing that I get to experience in any situation is noticing what's happening inside of me. And that's the constant work that I'm involved with. But I want to go to something that you shared with me earlier on. And first of all, it's about those negative beliefs and those negative patterns. And in my thoughts are that all this crazy monkey thinking that this irrational thinking that doesn't serve us at the highest level is because we're stuck with a bunch of beliefs that don't make sense.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not until they're pointed out to you. It's like holding a mirror up to yourself, I guess. And that's what I learned through coaching, because I never knew what a coach did. I had no idea. But it's coming out with something and then someone saying it back to you, and you go, wow, is that really what I believe in my mind? Is that how I'm living my life? I actually, with my clients, I've put together, I've just filmed actually a series of the top 10 beliefs that are keeping us from happiness, and they're things like I mentioned, worrying about what other people think. Well, not just beliefs, but negative patterns. So there might be procrastination, unable to say no, judging people, living in the past, in the future, but not living in the present. There's all these different things that we unconsciously live our life doing, that when someone can point them out to you and you go, oh, wow. I mean, mine was worrying about what other people thought, because that's how I was brought up. That was my culture. That was the social environment I lived in. And it wasn't until my coach pointed that out to me and I realised that I could look back over a huge chunk of my life and see how that pattern had played out with the decisions that I'd made, because I was constantly told it mattered what other people thought of what I did. So those sorts of things, when someone can help you look at the patterns and the way that you're living your life, it's not helping you, it's actually hurting you. And it's like lifting a veil. It's just like, wow, once it's recognising it though. You've got to recognise things that aren't working for you to change.
But isn't that kind of scary too for so many people? Because
it's confronting. It's confronting, and when you really want to change, when you really want something in your life and you're willing to look at yourself in that way, change can be uncomfortable. That's what I do. I help make change more comfortable and less confronting for people. But until you're totally honest with yourself, how can you ever, live the life that you really want to live? I mean, I'm here for a good time. I want to make the most of it. So I was willing, and there were painful moments where I thought, oh, gee, I haven't been a very good person in certain aspects. I mean, I am, a nice person, but we all make mistakes. None of us are perfect. But it also has given me the chance now to change that. Because when I went through that breakdown, I want to totally recreate myself and pick all the features that I want to be. I want to be a caring person, but I also at the same time want to push myself to do things.
But here's the thing that I have, my question for you then, because you had hit, in essence, rock bottom. I mean, you say, okay, this is too much pain, and we understand how that works in the world of NLP, and then, then we get a lot of leverage and we move forward. But I think a lot of people are within that pain range where it's not so intense, and they just accept that as the status quo for whatever reason. And so they're not asking this question, which I think is critical, and especially as coaches, this is a question we always have to ask people, is, what does it cost you to not change? What's your future going to be like, if you don't change? What are you going to miss out? And I think that's a question that most people don't answer. And so they're stuck in this rut forever until it's too late.
Yes, I totally agree with you, Bat. And I would say I asked myself the question, and I asked some of my clients, are you really living, or are you just existing? Because there's a huge difference. And yes, I know a lot of this is confrontational, and it's not for everybody. You can reach this point in different times of your life where you start questioning stuff. But yeah, that's what I did. And I know people have said to me, "Well, you're brave," but I kind of think I just couldn't accept that was all there was to my life. Even from a kid, I knew that there was more, that there was something out there that I was meant to do, that I wasn't just meant to live a small little life. And I know that there's other people out there like that, because I have them in my circle too, who've realised this. They've realised that there's more. There's a rumbling under the surface. I'm sure you felt it in your circles, where people know that this is a really important time in the world for us, and we need to stand up, and we need to heal the planet and the people and well,
let me answer that question, because that's been my challenge for years, and I've been living in the U.S. for about the last 20 years. Originally, I'm Dutch, by the way, and I was always looking for these people that had that sense of rumbling, but so often I just don't. I'm not seeing people or connecting with people that have that awareness. And so let me ask Sedona that question. Clearly you're that go-getter. Do you feel that most people are just kind of existing? They're just going on this, cruise control kind of life, and 100%, right? And I think a lot of people are still like that. And it's only when some major challenge happens in their life that they're going to do something about it. Maybe it's different in your culture down there in the South Pacific. Maybe, as women who now have the empty nest, and maybe that's in the United States too. I'm not aware of that, but I do know some women out there who have kids, and it's sort of like they're just existing as well, and I don't even know if they're asking the question.
Well, I mean, and that's okay. For some people that if you're happy with your life, that's fine. I'm not sort of making a blanket statement that unless I call it woken up. I've woken up. Well,
I'm glad you did.
If you haven't, that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that for some of us, and I've seen it, even with friends of mine, they're not happy inside because something is missing, and they know that, but they don't know what it is. They just know something's just not quite right. So it doesn't make it, living one way or the other is right or wrong. It's just that, I just see it a lot. There's just more. Maybe it's, like you said, with the politics and all the horrible things going on in the world. It's just that there are people waking up and going, there's more.
So this is my invitation for you, which you're already taken already, by the way, is being that voice for women out there to say, hey, you know what, there is something else out there for you. And I think that's important. And that's my voice too, actually, for everyone else, is, not wait till, the challenges become unsurmountable, or that it becomes so painful. It's being in that space where you can actually create a better life and a better vision for yourself. And I think it's up to us to be able to offer that and say, hey, you know what? Life can be better. But here's a question that I have for you, because you shared something with me that I absolutely totally agree with. And that is, as much as we think the problems are outside of us and the answers are outside of us, you're telling me that the insights are really already inside. So explain that, because I totally agree with you, and I'd like to hear your perspective.
I'm just trying to work out where to begin with this. With the therapy that I did, that I mentioned to you, rapid transformational therapy, which is created by Marissa Peer in the UK. A lot of what we need to do is really look inside of us, because what we do is we tell ourselves stories. We all create stories in our head of what could happen, like catastrophizing. And it's about challenging what's really true. It's about examining at your thoughts and your beliefs and challenging them and going, is this really true? And then once you can answer that is when you can start to change things. Like, for example, the caring about what other people thought of me. Like, I've had this great big story. I just create stories about, well, if I do that, this is going to happen. And then I'd challenge it and go, no, that's not even true. We can't predict the future. I don't know what's going to happen when I walk out the door later today. But I create all these stories in my head. So it's about really looking inside. And I guess that's what I do when I work with people, is I help them really work out what their beliefs are. Are they healthy for them?
Right.
What can they do that is a better way of thinking? And it's really about our thoughts. And thoughts create everything. Our thoughts then flow onto our emotions. Right.
I do one of these motivational assessments called motivational maps. And what's brilliant about this is that, it's identifying, where are we motivated, where are we demotivated. And a lot of it has to do with self-perception and also our beliefs. And it comes down to our identity. And one thing I know that, the strongest force in human behavior psychology is how do we remain consistent with how we identify ourselves. And so you're spot on when you talk about having these beliefs, these negative beliefs that really, disempower you and prevent you from moving forwards. And I think a large part of our coaching is contradicting these negative beliefs. And, the best way, I guess, as you said, is this really true? And too often we get stuck with these memes, with these thoughts, because somebody else infected us with them, that, we've decided that they're true forever. And having that question, having that challenge. There's another question I always like, if what is it? What's wrong is always available to you, and so is what's right. And what's great about this situation? So if a challenge comes up, and also, interesting enough, is that when you get into that disempowered state, rather than making all your reaction wrong or that situation wrong, that's also our opportunity to grow. And how is it that I can overcome this? But again, these are the things that we're not taught. And so these are the things that you're helping your clients with.
Well, what I've learned with the study that I did is that there's three main areas that keep us stuck in painful patterns or beliefs, and that is, one, that we're not enough in some way. We don't feel enough in some way. And I'll give you an example of this, being totally honest again, like I am. I always felt like I was not smart enough because I didn't finish school. and I didn't go on to tertiary studies. I carried that around for years. It didn't matter what I achieved in my life. I had great jobs. It didn't matter, even though, you know, I can articulate and I can learn and I can do all of these things. I always carried that with me, to the point where after I had my breakdown, I had break from work, I decided to study, to prove to myself, no one else,
right,
that I was intelligent enough. And I did really well. And then I quit it because I wasn't even enjoying it. And my sister, if she's watching, she said to me, I was telling her about this, she said, we always knew you were smart enough. You were always smart. It was never, you know, you just weren't interested in it. But I carried that around for 50-something years. So that's a huge belief. I'm not enough in some way. I'm not smart enough. I'm not interesting enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not whatever. The second one is that what I want is not available to me. That's for other people. I'll never be successful. I'll never have money. I'll never have the, you know, gorgeous partner that looks like George Clooney. I'll never have whatever. And the third thing that sets us apart is that we're different in some way. We're different. There's something, you know, we don't fit in with. And those three things are huge. And when you work through them and you can see what it is, like I did with my not feeling smart enough, and you can look at that and challenge it and go, oh, my God, that is so stupid. Mm-hmm. I'm just not going to even go there anymore. I'm just going to let it go. So whatever it is for you, once you identify it and you looking at it and just go, well, that's not serving me anymore. So I'm just going to get rid of that and change it and put something new and positive in its place.
And just that statement, this isn't serving me, you know, being okay to have a higher standard. And, oh, wait, hold on one second. We have some background noise here. Do you guys hear that? The echo?
That's better.
Wait, hold on a second. My computer is doing something very odd today. There you go. It's technologies. I mean, the computer's off and decides to turn on its own. I guess I got some marshmallows in there or something. So, as I was saying, well, let me say something else. And what's interesting is, to that point, we do stupid or we do clumsy, and it's not, you know, our behavior is not who we are. So our behavior is doing, right, but we're being somebody else. And so it's just the same thing with my daughter, and she's going to probably kill me by saying this, is that, you know, she was always says, I'm so clumsy. And I says, no, you're not clumsy. You know, you're just doing clumsy in a moment. And everybody does that. And so get rid of that thought. And so having that choice and that confidence to say, look, I've got a higher standard. I know I'm better. And even if you don't think you're better, knowing that you can be better is essential. And I just want to share the story about Thomas Edison. I don't know if you've ever heard this. It's one of my favorite stories to share. But Thomas Edison didn't finish school either. And I think he was back in 5th grade. And he came home with a letter, and in a sealed letter, and gave it to his mom. And then so she read the letter to him. And the letter said, or what she said to her son was, you know, this is from the teacher, is that your son is so incredibly smart. He's so ahead of the rest of the class. You know, we just can't keep up with him, or the kids can't keep up with him. And so, unfortunately, as teachers, we can't serve him. And so you're going to have to take care of him yourself. And so after his mom died, and then this man became incredibly successful as an inventor and everything else, he found the letter. And do you know what the letter said? It said, Mrs. Edison, unfortunately, your son is so inadequate, incompetent, and dumb. He's holding the class behind, and we just can't take care of him. And there are studies out there when you tell a class that they're straight A students, or you tell them that they're less than average, that's how they're going to perform. And so we have to get away from this idea that we have to think small, that we have to make ourselves smaller so that we can just fit in and just think big. And I recently saw some graduation speech by some big celebrity that says, don't think big, just think small. And that's not right. We've got to think big, and we've got to think bigger than ourselves. And because, as you kind of alluded to earlier on, that's where the fun is.
Yeah, I mean, I know this might come across as a serious conversation, but with me designing my life the way I want it now, I have a wonderful life. I mean, I wake up happy and excited about, what's going to happen today and who I can help and help support. And it doesn't have to be all serious. It's just like clearing away all the crap, excuse my language, and just, and finding the gold in your life. Because getting to this point, like I'm 55, and when you look back and there's this big part of your life behind you, and it sort of puts things in perspective. Well, how do I want the rest of my life to be? I want mine to be absolutely phenomenally amazing, but
right.
That is up to me. It's not up to anybody else. I'm choosing that for me.
So Sedona, you're the young one of the crowd here. So, and you've been with me for a while. Have you changed any of your perspectives as to what your future is going to be by some of the things that you've learned and what you're hearing today?
No.
No. Oh boy.
I'm a very rare case. I feel like I have known pretty much well, that's not necessarily true. Not always, but since a pretty young age, I've always been on the same track, and I find different paths to get to that end result. But overall, I picked a career because of what I was passionate about, what I felt like I could serve my community doing, what I felt like I would be happy doing, and that answer still hasn't changed. But the stepping stones to get there are probably, well, they're much better than I ever could have imagined they were when I was a kid. But that's probably what I've learned. I've learned that it takes different strokes to get places, and it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong.
So I guess, Susie, what she's also saying is that at her young age, she has all the answers, and we're still learning.
I wish I had at that age. Wow, good on you.
No, but Sedona is very unique in that respect, and that's why I really appreciate her being on the show, because of her perspective, and she's so intelligent and see things in different ways. But I want to get back to you, Susie, as well, and more about this rapid transformational therapy. And I think as far as what it is that how we can help people is essential. And I think what's important for people to hear today, especially down in the South Pacific or anywhere else in the world, there are people like Susie out there that have very, very unique and special skill sets that can help you with that transformation right away. And I think that's important. It's not the end all. I mean, there's still a lot of work that you have to do, but this kind of help, is that jump start, if you will, so that you don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to wait till it's really that bad, that you then finally have enough energy. And so I'd like to hear a little bit from you, Susie, about how that therapy actually works.
I'd love to. I'm so passionate about this, and I stumbled across it. Actually, a friend sent me a video of Marissa Peer, who is the creator of this therapy, and I just went, something just clicked inside me, and I studied as much as I could about it. I'm going to study live with her. She's coming out to Sydney later in the year. And basically what it is, she's a psychotherapist, and she would see people with a lot of eating disorders in the, I think she was in LA at the time. She was working there. And, you know, they'd be going to therapy for years and years, hashing over, you know, their issues and not getting any better. And she just thought that there was a better way, a faster way of working out what was the root cause of their issue and helping them. And so this therapy is exactly about that. It's why it's called rapid is, you know, you might only need probably maximum of 3 sessions. And it finds out what is the cause of the issues people are going through. Now, it could be that an issue, for example, I'll just give you someone who finding it hard to meet their soulmate because they find they always attract the same sort of destructive relationships. Now, that could be, you know, they might attract abusive partners. Now, that could be tracked back to that person was brought up in an abusive household, and that's what they know. That's what they saw. That's what they think is a functional relationship, even though it's so dysfunctional. But they might not realise that. It might have been at a time where they were too young, or it was just they just haven't had that understanding. And so this therapy helps people go right back. It takes them, it actually regresses them back to when these events happen. And under hypnosis, it's very powerful. The understanding while you're under hypnosis is very powerful. And then we work together to release that issue pattern and rewire the subconscious with new positive ones. And I've seen people change in front of my eyes, literally, when they understand why they do what they do, why they continually, you know, are overweight because they're hanging on to the weight for a reason. It might be that they relate comfort eating with love because whenever they were at their grandmother's house, that was their way of connecting with love. That might have been the only connection they had. So it could be with anxiety, depression, weight, addictions, phobias. All these different things have a cause, and we work out what that cause is. Well, the client works it out, which is even more powerful. And with that understanding, they free themselves of it. And it's just amazing.
You know, it's interesting because you hit a really important point, and that is that, you know, our behavior is essentially learned behavior. I mean, there's a lot of parts that are instinctive, but, you know, the way that we show up in society or communities is basically learned behavior. And part of that is a result, or all of it's as a result of your past experiences. And the immature brain of a child can't process the reality, what's true, right, about a particular situation, creates their own reality and their own meaning, and then base the rest of their life based on those meanings that don't necessarily serve them at a higher level. And just for putting in context, because hypnotherapy, not that I do it, but in the right way, it's extremely beneficial, because what happens is that we hold these experiences in our unconscious mind, and we protect our conscious mind because they're so painful. And what this process then does, I'm guessing, is helping that be released, those negative or disempowering or limiting beliefs or behaviors, and give it that new meaning, like you said, and doing it in a quick way with a hypnotherapy, because that's just giving your unconscious mind the opportunity just to let go. And the unconscious mind is still running the show. It's not going to do anything crazy or anything like that. That's the big fear that people have, is that they don't want to lose control. And so it sounds like that this is a brilliant process if you want to get that breakthrough. Having people like Suzy do that for you and quickly. I mean, I've never done hypnotherapy, so it's going to take me years to get rid of my crap.
I'll give you a session and we'll see.
Now, does that have to be done in person, or can it be done?
No, we do it over Zoom, Skype, or in person. I've got clients all around the world. This is a worldwide thing.
So if people want to try that, how do they find you?
They'll just go to my website, and I've got a bit more explanation about the process, and they can just message me, and we can set it up. And it's just I'm so blessed to have found it, and I just love to see people transform for them. It's not about me, it's watching them, it's giving them their lives back.
And that's actually a beautiful thing. That's actually why I do what I do. My emotional currency is seeing other people succeed. And that's so exciting, because it's all about human potential and how we can be much better than we are today. So I know we have just maybe 5 minutes. So I'm going to give Sedona the 5-finger thing, because she normally does that for me. But Suzy, I know you've got workshops and other kinds of programs. So share with us and the listeners anything that you have. And again, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Okay. Well, I do, but I've got the rapid transformation therapy, which I do as a standalone service. So that's one way people can work with me if there's a particular issue that's really causing them pain and they'd like to move through it. I also do mentoring programs. I've got a 5-week program, and I've also got a 3-month one. And people can find out the information on my website. So what I do with people is that maybe you've got something that you really, really want to achieve in your life, whether it's a career or a business. Or I had a client who wanted to finish writing a book, but there's something that just always keeps stopping you. You get to that point and you can't go any further, or you self-sabotage or something like along those lines, procrastinate, whatever it is. So what I do is I work with the therapy initially to find out what it is that's keeping people from really succeeding in what they want to do. And once we've worked through that, then we start putting real plans and steps, achievable steps into place. I'm not about setting people up to do things that aren't achievable, but it's helping them find what's inside them. And from there on in, it's just amazing. It's really transformative coaching, I guess you'd call it. And anything's possible.
Right.
It's amazing. I really love what I do, and I just feel so blessed and grateful to be able to speak to you today too, and share that and share it with as many people as I can. I'm all about paying it forward.
And that's why I enjoy my platform, and that's tapping into your authentic genius so that you can live the life that you desire. And it's really about getting help from people like yourself, and that's where what I talk about is tapping into the collective wisdom for generative collaboration, so we can all help each other become better people for ourselves. And so in that fashion, we can change the world. And oftentimes, we're so quick to judge and criticize other people and tell them that they're wrong, when the truth is that we've got to own who we are. And if we want to change something, then we have to change in ourselves first. And just like Gandhi says, be the change that you want to see in the world. And it's not just a cliche, it's absolutely true. And I think in today's world, and at least in the United States, I don't know what it's like in Australia, maybe you guys are a lot more sensible than we are. But the truth is everybody's very quick to criticize and complain and yell and scream and everything else. And really, we just need to take a step back and do what you said is, look, there's a bigger purpose for us. There's a compelling future for us if we only choose to find it and get the help that's out there. And so I really want to thank you for tonight. Actually, it's morning over there in Queensland, and I'm going to give you the last word as a goodbye to our listeners. So what's the one last gift that you want to share with the rest of the world? First of all, what you do and how they find you.
Okay, so my website is www.beautifullyselfish.com. I'm also on Facebook under Beautifully Selfish, or my own. I'll put a link here. And I'd love to offer anyone who's interested to contact me and quote that they've seen this interview and give them a huge discount, because I want to share my work. It's no point me keeping it to myself. I want to share it. So feel free to message me of any of the products I've got on there. But the most important thing is, like, it's your life. It's your life to live, so live it. And I always think my daughter is watching everything I do. And if I can share what I'm doing with her and let her know that her life is, she could do whatever she wants with it. And it's with all of us with kids or young people watching on. I think I have a responsibility to do that. So, just live your life, guys. Enjoy it. It's not going to be here for a long time. Make the most of it.
Well, I want to thank you for that, and shout out to all the listeners. How long are you going to wait to at least try it out? Connect with Suzy and see what transformation that's actually possible for you, so that you can start living the life that you desire. Suzy, thank you so much. Sedona, thank you so much as well. And I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker. Prescription for your transformation: real people, real conversations, and real success. Tapping into that authentic genius that you live the life that you desire. And finally, it's what prescription are you living your life? Find a new one and find Suzy. Thank you so much. I'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening to Dr. Rademaker's Prescription for Transformation. Join Dr. Bart Rademaker live right here on Radio Star Worldwide each week, or on demand 24/7.